Today on Legally Us, Vanessa Bryant is awarded $16 million after a jury reaches a decision in her case over Kobe Bryant's crash photos. And Jon Gosselin accuses ex-wife Kate of living off the money they save for their children from their time on reality TV. And Thomas Markle's son is seeking an emergency conservatorship on behalf of his father. We're breaking it all down in today's Legally Us. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Legally Us. I'm Christina, and join each and every week. I'm so excited to be joined by Nima Rahmani, a former federal prosecutor and president of West Coast Trial Lawyers. Hi, Nima. It's good to see you.
Hi, Christina. Great to see you again.
Well, Nima, obviously big news this week. Vanessa Bryant and her co-plaintiff, Chris Chester, have been awarded a combined $31 million by a Los Angeles jury. The jury did find that the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department and the fire department did share photos of Kobe Bryant, Gianna Bryant, and Chris's loved ones. Now, the jury did order that the Sheriff's Department pay Vanessa $10 million, $2.5 million for pain and suffering, and $7.5 million for any future pain and suffering, and to pay Chris a total of $9 million, while the fire department is ordered to pay the pair $6 million each for their past and future pain and suffering. Like I said, that they brought this case to trial after suing the county in 2020 after their spouses and daughter died in the helicopter crash. They both accused the Sheriff's Department and Fire Department of their employees taking photos on their personal phones and sharing them with other people from the plane site. And the county says that the photos never were posted online and were deleted shortly after, but they lived in fear that these photos were going to be made public. So what do we think? Are you surprised by this verdict?
This is a surprising verdict, especially because federal juries tend to be more conservative. And whenever you're dealing with a government defendant, jurors are sometimes thinking, hey, this is going to come out of taxpayer money or my tax is going to go up. And this was, at the end of the day, a pure emotional distress case. But I think we got this huge verdict for two reasons. One, Kobe Bryant is a legend here in Los Angeles. He is beloved by all. And Sheriff Alex Villanueva has dealt with one scandal after another. And I don't think the jurors liked how the sheriff's deputies not only took and sent these pictures, but they lied about it both before trial and on the witness stand. And they tried to cover it up by wiping hard drives and cell phones. So they really wanted to send a message that, you know, our public servants, whether it's firefighters or police officers, they are not above the law. And if they break the law, they're going to be held accountable. And that's what happened this week.
Definitely. Interesting that it happened on Kobe Bryant Day, right?
Oh, yeah. Mamba Day, August 24th. So what a day. Not only did closing arguments happen that day, but the jurors returned a quick verdict that same day. So they were clearly all on the same page when they came back unanimously in just a few hours.
So can you kind of break down that number, that $16 million that she was awarded, he was awarded $15 million? How do they decide who gets what? You know, the Sheriff's Department has to pay a little bit more. So how is that divided out?
Yeah, it's up to the jurors, right? So obviously each plaintiffs, whether it's Bryant or Chester, they have their own claim and there's multiple defendants. So we know that obviously the sheriff's deputies were more liable. That's why the jurors awarded more damages against them. But the firefighters weren't off the hook as well. And it really just shows how many people were involved in this unlawful and unethical conduct and the cover up. So it wasn't just the sheriffs, but you have firefighters as well. They're at the scene. Instead of documenting evidence that may be a crime or maybe used in a civil case, what they're doing is taking pictures, showing it to their colleagues, their friends, their family members, even bartenders. Really egregious conduct. So what the jurors had to do, and they did it relatively quickly, is to decide how much damages should be awarded to each plaintiff against each defendant. And that's why you got the numbers that you did. Ultimately, it added up to a big one, $31 million.
Right. Do you think that they had that number in mind? Because Chris Chester's attorney, they were asking for $75 million between Chris and Vanessa. So how did they come up with that $16 million? Do you think that they had that in their minds? And do you think that amount was fair?
I think it was fair because this was really unjust what happened to Vanessa Bryant. She talked about the panic attacks that she still suffers, how she's afraid to go on social media because she's concerned she might see these pictures or her other daughters may see these pictures. And once the toothpaste is out of the tube, these pictures are out, you can never get them back. So we don't know if and when they'll ever show up, who they were sent to. So I think the jurors did the right thing in this case, holding our public servants. And I have respect for law enforcement and firefighters, but if they break the law, they got to be held accountable. And that's what happened this week.
Definitely. Now, in this case, can the sheriff department and the fire department, can they appeal this at all?
They definitely will appeal this verdict. They're going to ask the judge to reduce it or even set it aside. They're going to say it's excessive. Again, it's not something that we typically see for a pure emotional distress claim with no economic damages. The difference between a case like this and Johnny Depp is Johnny Depp could say, I lost Pirate 6. I lost X amount of money. There's really a hard number. This is a case about human damages. And typically, jurors don't award this much when it's just emotional distress. But again, it really shows how important Los Angeles is to the community here where I live. And again, this was a downtown Los Angeles jury.
Definitely. And do you think that they have any chance to win an appeal if they do move forward with that?
I think it's possible that on appeal, this verdict is not set aside. It's not going to go down to zero, but either the district judge in this case or the Court of Appeals may reduce it and may say it's excessive. That's certainly a possibility.
Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see. Definitely interesting. And hopefully Vanessa and Chris feel a little bit better after this decision.
Hopefully, obviously such a tragedy what happened, and to have law enforcement act the way they did. Hopefully this gives the family some closure.
News from Jon Gosselin. Who would think that after all these years, they are still going at it? But he gave an explosive interview saying that his ex-wife, Kate, has been living off their children's money. Now, of course, they share 8 children, and he referred to the pair's 2019 custody dispute in which Kate admitted to borrowing $100,000 from their kids' trust fund to cover living expenses. She said at the time it was in order to survive and cover their family's daily expenses. He has since alleged that she has not paid the kids back now that their youngest have turned 18. Well, her attorney fired back saying that he owes her over $130,000 in child support, not counting interest from the day it was entered. A source did tell Us Weekly that Jon will not go after Kate and battle her because he legally can't. So can he legally not go after her for this money?
Well, Christina, it's actually the kids' money. They're all 18. So if they want to go after their mom, that's their legal right to do so. And let's not forget, this is money that the children earn for their appearances. That's why it went to a trust for their benefit. So if Kate misappropriated or took those monies, that's a big problem.
That's a big problem. I mean, why do you think Jon went public with this? Do you think that maybe he tried to get the money back in private, or this was kind of like a last straw, or he just wanted it to get messy?
Well, Christina, on us, we've seen how divorces can get nasty. So sometimes there are legal reasons to put things out in the public, but sometimes just you want to make your ex's life miserable. And I think this is the latter here.
Definitely. Do you think that her kids, I mean, it's kind of speculative, you can't really say, but do you think that her kids would go after her for this money?
Potentially, as the trustee, she has a fiduciary duty. That's a legal term that means that she has to maintain that money for the benefit of her kids. She can't use it for herself personally. That's why we see her arguing that it was really for school and tuition related expenses.
Can she use that money, like she said, to survive and for those daily expenses? Is she allowed to use that money before they're 18?
Not to survive personally. And if she uses it for school related expenses, that's something she's got to document. And that's something that the judge took issue with. She said, look, you can't just loan money to yourself. That's improper. There's got to be paperwork. You got to repay it back with interest. So this is potentially mishandling her children's money.
Yeah. Now, do all the children have to come together and go after her at once? Or can they have 8 kids. Can 1 or 2 of them do it? Or does it have to be a collective unit going after her?
It doesn't have to be. Just one of the kids can file suit against mom and say, listen, you took our money, you stole it, you didn't repay it back. I'm filing a lawsuit against you. We'll see if that happens. We'll
see if that happens, because I know some live with Jon and some live with her. So it should be interesting. Is it surprising? I mean, she allegedly said that he owes over $130,000 in child support. Did she maybe not go after him knowing that she took all that money from the trust?
Well, they're 2 really different cases. She may owe her kids money, but Jon may owe her money. So she may absolutely have a claim for more than $100,000 in child support. Even though the kids are no longer kids and they're 18, she can go get that money if she chooses to do so. So
it's not so even if you're behind on child support and your kids turn 18, you legally do still have to fulfill those obligations, correct?
Absolutely. The kids turning 18 doesn't change your obligations. Now, obviously, if too much time passes and the statute of limitations runs, Kate can't go after Jon. But the mere fact that our kids are old does not mean that if Jon really does owe that child support, he doesn't have to pay it.
Oof, messy, messy, messy. Well, we will see how that plays out, I'm sure. All right. Well, moving on to Meghan Markle's father, Thomas Markle. You know, everybody loves the royal stories around here. So we have to talk about this because he could be under a limited emergency conservatorship after his son applied to a Los Angeles court. The possibility of a conservatorship was raised by his son during a recent court hearing in a breach of contract lawsuit filed by Markle against Coleman Rayner, which is the agency that, of course, famously staged pictures of him preparing for his daughter's wedding back in 2018. So he is seeking $1 million in damages from the picture agency, arguing that he was exposed to international ridicule and should have been given the right to approve the photos before publication in a November 2021 lawsuit. The company says that this should totally be thrown out. But since then, he has been treated for a stroke, and his son, Tom Markle Jr., appeared on his behalf in a recent hearing applying for this conservatorship. So before we get into this, what exactly is a limited emergency conservatorship?
Yeah, it's limited, which means it's not forever and it's not for everything. So there's certain things that Tom Jr. can do regarding his father's medical issues. He can make certain decisions for him, but it's certainly not a case, and we've covered it a lot here on us with Britney Spears, where it's a complete and total conservatorship and those decisions are made over everything.
Right. Did Britney's conservatorship, did that start as an limited emergency conservatorship?
No, it was not. It was a permanent and total conservatorship out the gate, both over a person as well as her finances.
So crazy. I mean, is it common for somebody that, you know, has some medical issues like a stroke and is not fully capable of probably representing themselves or, you know, working with their attorneys? Is it common for somebody to strike or want a limited conservatorship?
It is common in a case like Thomas Sr. You have a medical issue, you're in the hospital, you can't make decisions for yourself. A limited temporary conservatorship. This is not a Britney Spears situation where you have a young, successful entertainer that's under a conservatorship for 13 years and can't make any decisions for herself. So this is the type of case that we typically see conservatorships used for, and it's appropriate.
Yeah. Does Thomas have any chance in winning this case since he cooperated with the photo agency at the time, was working with them to kind of stage these photos? Now he just doesn't seem like he liked the ridicule that he got and like the photos that were published.
Yeah, this is not a really good case, Christina. A little bit of buyer's remorse here. I mean, he's going to have a tough time clearing liability, proven fault, and then $1 million in damages. I don't think he's going to get that.
I don't think so either. I mean, why do you think he's choosing to do this now? I mean, it's been a while since this happened. Obviously, he's been under scrutiny for quite some time since those photos came about. So, yes, I'm sure it was probably not the reaction that he wanted, but I guess it's the price you pay.
Yeah, well, we've seen both from Thomas as well as his daughter. Sometimes you make bad legal decisions and you're upset about how you're being portrayed by the media. But sometimes filing a lawsuit just draws even more media attention to your case. So it's really throwing good money after bad here.
Definitely. Well, Nima, thank you so much for breaking down all the biggest legal stories of the week with us. As always, I always appreciate your time. Thank you.
Of course. Love being on. See you next week.
See you next week. And for everybody, keep commenting, keep subscribing. We'd love to see what you guys have to say about these cases as well. And like you said, we will see you next week. For more news, content, and exclusive interviews, make sure to hit the sub, like, and bell button down below and visit usmagazine.com.